Welcome to the Autism in Black podcast, where we focus on all things autism and the Black parent experience. Our goal is to always educate, support, and empower parents to advocate for not only their children, but themselves. I'm Maria Davis-Pierre, a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida and America's #1 autism advocate for Black parents. I'm the founder and CEO of Autism in Black, Inc., where we aim to include the excluded.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Autism in Black podcast. I'm your host, Maria Davis-Pierre, licensed mental health counselor and the CEO and founder of Autism in Black, Inc. Today, we have a very special guest. We are here with another one of our esteemed 4th annual Autism in Black conference speakers. Here I am with Dr. Etienne, who is a professor and early intervention practitioner with many years of experience working with autistic children. She is a proud Haitian American who is fluent in Haitian Creole and brings awareness to autism to the community she works with. Under her company, Etienne Enrichment, LLC, Dr. Etienne facilitates workshops relating her professional and research experience. In March 2023, Dr. Etienne defended her doctoral dissertation and her research focused on teacher perceptions in the use of evidence-based practices for autistic students. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
So let's just jump right into it. One, I really want to know what started your journey into the autism niche.
So primarily, my primary exposure and experience was working with adults with developmental disabilities and autism. Like during undergrad here in New Jersey, I did group homework, a lot of intense group homework with adults with severe high needs. So while navigating that, I saw the severity of where after that transition piece, where the outcome would be for those without possible early intervention. Again, those particular adults, I didn't have any prehistory of what their therapy track was, but I did notice there probably was a missing link. So I wanted to kind of step back, go into the foundational piece, and that's how I ended up with early intervention. I wanted to start from the beginning because through all my research, I saw the earlier, the better we intervene, the more better the outcome. So that's how I kind of shifted from adults going all the way down to the babies.
Perfect. And then I know that as a proud Haitian American, shout out to my Haitians, as y'all know, my husband's Haitian. One, I know, well, we live in a community that is has heavily Haitian population, right? And I know with my work, bringing the awareness to the community can be difficult for outsiders. Luckily, because of my last name, I've kind of been able to get in there.
Yes.
They see me as family, which I appreciate. And having, my children who are Haitian American as well. How do you bring awareness to the Haitian community when it comes to autism?
Well, I do this by two ways. As an educational consultant, one thing that I offer to the school districts and the organizations I work with is to host my workshops in English and Haitian Creole. So I've been fortunate to work with 2 school districts here in New Jersey, Newark Public Schools, Orange Public Schools, which serves a large Haitian population and also new families coming in. So I'm giving them the strategies that I would give to parents who may suspect their child may be autistic, or parents who have children navigating deficits or delays or behavioral challenges. So I offer workshops in both English and Haitian Creole. And also as an interpreter, I assist school districts with Haitian Creole evaluation translation. So I'm able to be that connecting piece between families and schools.
I love that. I am not fluent in Creole, but I do a little something, something. But I see with schools here that really frustrates me is that they will pull an older sibling into the meeting and try to have them as a translator. And I'm like, one, this is a no.
Yes.
The no.
Complete no.
Complete no, utter no. Two, you get the translation services as a part of the law. So I don't understand why you as a school are not informing the parent of their rights and what they get. And that's one of the things that frustrates me so much is that if you know that the community is 30% of that school that my children are at are Haitian, then why are you not making sure that you have the translation going on with newsletters, with any kind of
Yes.
that you're sending home, and making sure that they know that they can get a translator? So
Yes.
big up to you for being one of the translator services for schools, because it's
Thank you. Yes, and then some schools, they resort to using some third-party companies. But what I'm seeing with that, the breakdown in communication is the interpreter could be very well fluent in Haitian Creole, but not fluent in English. So then we're going to still get that breakdown in communication. So we have to ensure they both know the language and what's actually going on with the evaluation, the pedagogy, the terminology, all of that. So I'm fortunate to have that special education background and know the language. So I'm happy I'm able to bring that to the community.
That is a good point. A point I've actually never even thought of. One is having an interpreter who is not able to understand what is going on in the room. And I'm pretty sure that leads to another gap in the communication,
Yes.
what is going on,
Yes.
especially once the acronyms get to being tossed around, when we're talking about evaluation pieces and not understanding. Well, I think that's hard for even those who speak English. I've been in the parents and they're like, I don't understand. And I have to remind the schools, hey, you have to break down what you're talking about. Not everybody has a clinical background or even a special education background to understand what you're saying about these evaluations with their children. So
yes, very true.
Bringing that up. I want to switch into your doctoral research because it's one that introduces really, I love it. Because I'm kind of doing something not too similar, but something focused on teachers' perceptions. And so I am very interested to hearing more about your actual research, because it focused on teacher perceptions of evidence-based practices for autistic students. So can you share some insights into the purpose of your research and the key findings that you uncovered?
Yes. So my real purpose was before the autism rate changed in New Jersey. Literally a week after I defended, New Jersey had the fastest growing autism rate compared to the national average. They, I believe, were maybe 1 in 34, and it went up maybe 2 or 3 points right after I defended. So I wanted to see, I'm in this state where there's clearly a need. And just from all my work in the classrooms, teachers were struggling. Although these were very knowledgeable teachers with a lot of years of experience, teachers who worked with different levels of education, with special needs or neurotypical learners, but there was always seemed to be some missing link with working with children who were autistic. So I wanted to explore that. And a lot of the things teachers were already doing, they didn't know they were doing, or what they were called. Many teachers relied on mentor teachers. Many relied on their teacher prep programs, but some of my research participants actually disclosed that they weren't even taught how to work with children who were autistic during their teacher prep program, which was very interesting. If we're, educating future teachers, they're going to be working most likely with children on the spectrum, even if it's in a self-contained setting or inclusion setting, which most of my participants were in the inclusion setting. So I really wanted to shed light on that and see what were they doing, what were the areas they needed more support with, and where could my findings take, research. So what I'm doing with the workshops is basically what my findings were, that we need to have more training, more embedded professional development, which is, I took my research. That's how I kind of started launching this consulting, where I was just presenting my research and my findings. And then I started developing topics based off what my audience was saying from where I was presenting my research.
And do you feel like COVID impacted your findings even more? Because what I have found is that we already knew there was a teacher shortage, and now with
Yes.
COVID, it has impacted it even more. So I'm seeing some states not even require even more those special education certifications. So, because I know my
Yes.
children, we get the little letter at the beginning of the year saying the teacher is not qualified for the special education department that they're teaching in,
Mhm.
but they're there and they're just notifying us with this letter. Do you feel like COVID impacted your research in any way?
Yes, especially when I was trying to do data collection, because it was during the pandemic and I couldn't find a teacher to sit and interview with me on Zoom. It took me a while to collect data. And I understood that teachers were tired, they were burnt out. Some ended up dropping from after initially agreeing to be in my study. And yes, COVID impacted our teacher shortage. And unfortunately, you know, there are many great teachers out there, but throwing them into the line of fire when they're not qualified to work with a population of students is
Mm,
doing the child a disservice, the family,
mm,
and that teacher will be burnt out, most
yes.
likely even sooner than a teacher who may be better prepared. So hopefully teachers like that are great potential audience for my research or for this workshop that I'm going to do at the conference about those evidence-based practices, those things that we could do on a daily basis to kind of hone in on what we're already doing, but strengthening it for autistic learners.
Great. And then can you give us
Yes.
a little glimpse into the workshop and the practices you'll be talking about? Because if you guys want the full scope of
Mhm.
this workshop, you got to get your tickets to the 4th Annual Autism in Black Conference at www.autisminblack.org/conference 2024. And that link is in the show notes. So give us a little glimpse of what this, some of the evidence-based practices you'll be talking
Yes.
about.
So I'll be introducing my research questions, my findings, and what were the most commonly spoke about trends that came up in my research. So there's about 27, there's a chart of evidence-based practices. So I'm going to align that with what was stated in my research, and I'll do a deep dive into the three main ones that my participants spoke about. And I'll give examples and how we could use them in everyday practice at home, school, or community for children, autistic children.
I love that.
Yes.
And then, oh gosh, excuse me, guys, I
Mhm.
lost my train of thought on my next question. Give me a second here. This is autism in real life.
Yes.
So how do you believe your research findings can benefit educators, practitioners, or parents who will be attending and can relay this information back to their children's teachers?
I think it could benefit all educators, even veteran educators or new educators who are coming into the field, who may be newly introduced to working with children who are autistic. That can benefit them on knowing which evidence-based practices that they could implement into their daily teaching strategies. For practitioners, some practitioners I know with early intervention, a lot of practitioners I've met transition from other fields due to COVID. A lot of people were going into other things. And a lot of the practitioners I've worked with actually left the classroom, but never had that experience working with um, learners on the spectrum. So I think it would benefit new practitioners and also parents who may have recently gotten a diagnosis and may want more information on things that they could do at home. A lot of the things I like to talk about, not with this workshop particularly, but generalization, like things we do at home, we want to see them generalized into other environments. So if you're working on these evidence-based practices that I'm discussing, you can implement them at home in your child's routine, and then hopefully these skills, along with maybe other therapy or what's happening at school, we can help them gain those skills that they can generalize on.
I love that. And then this is a question that I love to ask. What are some common misconceptions or challenges you've encountered regarding the implementation of these evidence-based practices?
That ABA is not for everyone. I am ABA trained, and I always let it, I'll tell parents that, or the community that I'm working with, but it's not for every child. And I always inform parents that you are the expert in your child. So if there's a strategy that you may not feel comfortable with, it's okay to say, this doesn't align with what I want from my child. So the ABA, it works for some children, and for some children, we may need to explore other options. It's one of the strategies. It's not the tell-all be-all. Although I'm ABA trained, I'm not always going to say ABA is the best strategy. And a lot of the strategies I do, they're rooted in ABA, but there are also other strategies that could be used for children who are on the spectrum.
Exactly. I think that the ABA conversation when it comes to autism gets so construed, because when we're thinking about the Black community, we have to think differently. And you all know how all my listeners know my whole spiel about ABA for the Black community is that we really have to listen and go there for ourselves, because we can't walk this walk like white autistics can. A lot of times we are in the situation of needing these practices and needing these services for a multitude of reasons. So we can't deny something because a vast majority of white individuals are saying it's bad for us. Yes. In my opinion, the whole world is rooted in a lot of ABA, especially when it comes to people, but people don't want to have that conversation. But I'll get off my soapbox.
And the availability of resources to insurance. And in some areas where I live, parents are on waiting lists, but then I don't see the waiting lists in other areas, because I work in all socioeconomic backgrounds. So I work with all families, high income, low income, medium income. So the disparity is unfortunately an issue also, a lack of resources and insurance.
Most definitely.
This episode of the Autism in Black podcast is sponsored by Amazon, our title sponsor for the 4th annual Autism in Black conference, and Grantmakers for Girls of Color, our gold sponsor for the 4th annual Autism in Black conference. Special thanks to Amazon and Grantmakers for Girls of Color for their sponsorship and making an impact.
As we wrap up, what advice would you give to educators, practitioners, and caregivers who are looking to enhance their understanding and implementation of these evidence-based practices for autistic students?
My advice is to always keep whatever information you're getting pertaining to your child. I always tell participants of my workshops, if you've met one child with autism, you've only met one child with autism. What works for one child may not work for others. We can take in all the information. You can join this great conference, get all this information, but see what works, what will work for your child ultimately. And my advice to practitioners and educators, again, parents are the expert in their child. We may have the content knowledge, we may have the pedagogy, we may have a lot of degrees like myself, but I always go to the parents. They are my best resource when I'm working with their child, especially if I'm pairing. Before I go in and implement anything, do any observation, I like to meet with parents first, because they are the expert in their child.
I love that. I like to say when doing my clinical work is that the parents are the expert in their child. I'm the expert in the actual, intervention. And together, when we place them together, that's when the beautiful work happens. So I love that you say that.
Yes. Yes.
And where can everyone find you? Because I know all of my Haitian listeners going to be running to you, and two, I know all the educators are going to be running to you because they want to have your service. So where can they book you? Where can they find more about your workshops? Let us know.
Yes. So my website is under construction. I'm getting a new website worked, but it is www.etienneenrichment.com. But I am on my Instagram and LinkedIn very often. So its Instagram is at Etienne, _enrichment. That's my Instagram, and that links to my Facebook and my email. You can contact me from Instagram. It has all my other information there.
Perfect. And we will have all of that information in the show notes as well.
Yes.
Dr. Etienne, thank you so much
Yes.
for being
Thank you.
a guest on our podcast. I want to give you your flowers because
Thank you.
oftentimes we don't get them. So thank you for the gems that you dropped, because this is going to help a lot of people.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you.
Yes. And for all of you listening, thank you for listening to another episode of the Autism in Black podcast, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
If you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can always be notified when a new episode drops. To get the resources shared on today's podcast and the show notes, make sure to go to autisminblack.org/podcast. Don't forget to share your takeaways from the show on your IG stories and Twitter using our official hashtag AIBpod so that we can find and share them. If you want to continue the conversation from today's episode, join our Autism in Black podcast Facebook community at facebook.com/group/AIBpod.